Here we go, boys. All right, what's up and welcome back to week 2 of Bayou Breakdown presented by Ornitos Tequila. As always, joined by Cruz and Chris Rosvaglu. First off, it's finally nice to actually be here because I had to evacuate last week and couldn't actually join the show. We had some internet problems, but fellas, how are we doing today?
I'm good, man. Week 1, going to the game today. I'm pumped. I can't believe it's finally here. It's been the longest off season I can remember.
Yeah, same as Cruz said. I mean, it's one of those things where, I woke up this morning and I was a little bit like, they're going to start off 0-1. What's going to go on? I'm like, all the thoughts are going through my head, but I'd rather have that than, it's June and we're sitting there and our best option on TV is baseball. So I will gladly take week 1. I'm pumped. And like you said before, college football, it's been a wild 2 weeks to start the season. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, excited to dive into that. But first, we got to talk about the absolute flops of Ohio State and obviously University of Texas. Cruz, I actually stole a tweet from you of "Oh no" instead of "OHIO." So shout out to you with the OHNO. Let's talk about that first. Ohio State falls 35-28 to Oregon and just did not look like an Ohio State football team, right? Oregon gashes them. Ohio State gives up 269 yards on the ground, 505 total yards, and Ohio State actually outgained them by about 100 yards and still lost 35-28. Chris, I'm going to start with you. I know it's early in the season, but is it kind of time to panic up there in Columbus, Ohio? Because, I've looked at their schedule and it's an early season loss, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, this team wasn't, I didn't have Oregon pegged to go into the shoe and beat Ohio State.
Yeah, so the only reason I'm not going to fully, panic yet is because this team's schedule is not as hard as, other years. I would say if they had to face maybe an Iowa, then their offense can struggle against Iowa's defense, unless that ends up being, a matchup later down the road. But the only real game that really scares me right now is the Penn State game. And the other thing about Ohio State is knowing them, the issues that they've been having are issues I can see them continually having, whether it's on defense or whether the offense just not being that consistent. And it's something me and Cruz actually talked about last week. We said CJ Stroud's going to put up these gaudy numbers and everyone's going to say that this kid is special, and he might end up being a special quarterback. But right now, he's overthrowing a lot of passes. He's not looking sharp. And you'll look at the stat line and say, wow, this man had over 400 passing yards. But when it mattered, were they able to move the ball? Not really. And think about it. They went up against an Oregon defense that was missing Justin Flowett's best linebacker and Kayvon Thibodeau, who's their best just player overall. And although they put up 28 points, it's almost like they really didn't put up any points until that sense of urgency kicked in. That worries me. And the Ohio State defense is just not good. That's back-to-back weeks of giving up 30-plus points. And that's back-to-back weeks, more importantly, of their defensive coordinator, Kerry Coombs, not giving, making in-game adjustments. And Cardale Jones went out on Twitter and just ripped Ohio State's defense for not making in-game adjustments. And Cardale Jones always has good things to say. So if Cardale's not on board, I would be a little worried about what's going on at least the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. Chris, who did I pick as my biggest disappointment of week 1 last week?
Yeah, no, you're right.
I told you this team is not the same Ohio State team. That's why I picked Penn State to win the Big Ten this year. I picked them in Iowa to represent the Big Ten championship. And for that reason, CJ Stroud is not that guy. And yesterday proved it. Yeah, he had a lot of good numbers, but on the field, it's basically like the Matthew Stafford effect. Matthew Stafford puts up these great numbers, but at the end of the day, they don't result in wins. I thought Ohio State abandoned the run game way too early. I thought they should have kept giving the ball to Master Teague and that freshman who is he's 5'8" and 220 pounds. He's a monster, and he's gone. If he breaks the tackle, he's gone. But this Ohio State defense is not what we've seen with the Lattimores and the Von Bells and the Bosas. It just feels like it's almost like they've turned into the Jim Tressel Ohio State team, not the Urban Meyer. And it's starting to show that Urban Meyer's players are no longer in the system. This is Ryan Day's team now. So he needs to step it up. Penn State's going to be a problem for them. Penn State will run them off the field if this continues on defense. So I didn't have a good feeling about Ohio State this year. My theory is starting to come true, and I love to see it because I can't stand Ohio State fans, but I do appreciate what they give the New Orleans Saints and the pros. So, this is not the Urban Meyer Ohio State team, and it's clearly showing.
And I actually saw this on Twitter last night, but this is how they started off the game. I mean, obviously, this is just brutal to start right there. So, I mean, that probably showed you right then and there that Ohio State was going to flop at the shoe. Now, let's move it back let's go to Austin, Texas, because I'm just Texas football just always just bothers me for some reason. I feel like they're always just overrated. And they had a good win against UL last week, but man, did they just get absolutely stomped in Arkansas. And I guess that was kind of their welcome to the SEC. Card goes 8 for 15 for 61 yards, gets pulled late in the third. I think they have 118 total yards in the air, 138 on the ground. Just a really bad performance by Texas. And Cruz, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah.
This seems to happen every year with Texas is that they're just overrated. They have so much hype, and I just can't understand why this program, they just don't recruit well, and it just never shows on the field. And I don't know what the problem is. I don't know what you see. But Texas they just never impress me ever.
I wouldn't say they recruit probably some of the best talent in the nation. I don't think it's a talent thing. I think it's a culture thing, and I think it's a coaching thing. I'm giving Sarkisian a pass this year because
I know it's your boy.
No, it's not just that. It's first year, big program, ton of expectations, has boosters breathing down his neck. This is probably the most prominent job in college football just because of the money, the recruiting base, the facilities. But you have to produce results. Last night was just embarrassing. Now, if they were playing A&M or Florida or Georgia or Bama, understandable. You're just not at that level yet. But Arkansas is at the bottom of the SEC West year after year, and they got embarrassed. Steve Sarkisian was drinking a lot of this last night. He really was. So, Texas needs to turn it around. They still have a chance to make some noise in the Big 12. I don't know if it's going to be this year, but Steve Sarkisian needs to really figure this out because I don't want him to be the next Tom Herman. I don't want that. And
right.
And it was a great win against Louisiana last week. I thought I was like, oh wow, okay, they're ahead of schedule. They're doing some things in Austin, but to get run off the field in Fayetteville, Arkansas is just unexcusable.
Yeah, Chris, they gave up 333 yards on the ground to Arkansas. What did you see with what they produced last night?
Yeah, look, honestly, I know I'm going to sound terrible, with this, and this is like giving Texas a pass, but I look, the score in terms of the way they lost last night's not what you want, and how they lost in terms of getting dominated is not what you want as well. But going into that game, everyone kind of said, don't sleep on Arkansas. This could be one of those upset games that's not technically an upset because Arkansas is an experienced team. Now, I know to Cruz's point, they're not a team that's been winning of late, but they do have a lot of talent, especially upperclassmen on that roster. And obviously, Coach Pittman's done an excellent job of making Arkansas competitive, which is something they were not a couple of years ago. The ground game, though, is kind of the concern that you mentioned, Justin, because it comes back to something that me and Cruz talk about all the time. When you're in the SEC, and this is a problem that LSU had against UCLA that blew our minds, usually in the trenches, you just dominate teams. That was clearly the case yesterday. When you have 4 different guys going for at least 50 rushing yards, you're clearly doing something right. So Texas had no answer in that regard. But I do think, I want to give it a little bit more time because let's see how Texas plays against their schedule. I think that's where we're going to determine how, the Sark era goes. Insane, but I'm not going to judge Steve Sarkisian's era on what happens today against Arkansas, what happens against a non-conference game maybe next year. I want to know about the Big 12 games. Are they not losing games that they would have lost back then with Herman as their coach? That for me is going to determine a lot because there were so many games back then with Texas that you would say, okay, now's the time to beat Oklahoma. Okay, now's the time to beat Iowa State. And those games just weren't happening. So can they win those, especially against the Oklahoma team that is vulnerable and Iowa State team that looked terrible yesterday? That's how I'm going to determine it. For this one, I just think it's a cliche thing, but Arkansas is at home. Arkansas is the more physical team. Arkansas had more experience in terms of the coaching staff and the players on there, and their ground game was phenomenal. And I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas actually is competitive throughout all their games this year. And we look back at them and we say, okay, maybe that is a 7-5 football team, and that loss for Texas doesn't look that bad.
Yeah, Sam Pittman's a great coach. He's underrated. Arkansas doesn't get a lot of love because they play probably in the most competitive division in all of college football.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And on the flip side of this, guys, is do we take Oregon and Arkansas now seriously? I mean, I know Oregon was, I think 12th going on in the game, but they showed up without Kayvon Thibodeau. Like, their number 1 overall draft pick. That is a huge win for Oregon. Is Oregon now, I'll start with Cruz, is Oregon now like a threat to make the college playoffs?
Playoffs, I don't know. I need to see. I need to see Oregon not lose that winnable game that they seem to lose year after year, rather that be to Stanford, USC, right, Arizona State. I need to see them do that. Now, in the Pac-12, absolutely. They're the front runner. I don't know how you can say otherwise. USC lost last night to Stanford. They got run off the field. It was like Jim Harbaugh's Stanford. But I 100% agree. You don't have your 2 best defensive players. You're on the road. You squeak by a win against Fresno State the week before. I was so impressed because they didn't just win the game. They dominated. That score, the score did not reflect how much Oregon controlled that game. And same with CJ Stroud. Like, the numbers look good, but a lot of that was just Oregon playing safe, try not to blow the lead. And I was very impressed. Arkansas, yes, I think Arkansas will be very competitive in the SEC this year. The problem is, though, is that they have to play LSU. They have to play Bama. They have to play Ole Miss. They have to play A&M. And Auburn looks much improved already under their new regime. I know they played some lackluster competition, but I want to see, because next week Auburn goes to Penn State. That's going to say a lot of either how good is Penn State or how good is Auburn. So I think Arkansas will make a bowl game. I think they need a generational player like they had back in Darren McFadden or Peyton Hillis or Felix Jones. Like that, they need one of those players. And who knows, maybe Sam Pittman can get one.
Chris, is it time to take Oregon seriously? What do you see with Arkansas? I mean, it's a huge win there in Ohio State.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, for Arkansas, I kind of agree with Cruz. You make a bowl game this year, all's well. I don't think there's any timeline where they got to push it even further than that, at least in 2021. As for Oregon, I would love to sit here and tell you that I think they're a college football playoff contender. But again, it goes to the point of we've seen, and it's not just Oregon, we've seen Pac-12 teams, whoever's the Pac-12 frontrunner by any given year, there's like a game in November that they should win. They end up falling short by the field goal. And then they look back at it and they wonder why they didn't make the college football playoff. And it's because of that specific game. So I want to see, can Oregon beat a UCLA? Can they beat a Stanford team that looked really good last night? Can they even beat a Utah team that I know looked underwhelming on Saturday, but who knows, late in the season on the road, that could be difficult. So that's what I want to see. I think the defense, though, showed yesterday without its 2 best players that when they come back in the lineup, that they're just going to be a phenomenal unit. Offensively is the big thing for me, because that's going to determine how far this team goes. Because if Anthony Brown makes the decisions he made yesterday, they're going to be fine, because that ground game with CJ Verdell is just fantastic. So if Anthony Brown plays well, then okay, I could see them beating UCLA and taking care of business. But I always think of this with the Pac-12. They're so sloppy at times that Oregon needs to run the table and go undefeated probably to make the playoff. And I just don't know if that's going to happen, because the Pac-12, I don't want to say it's bad, as inconsistent as it is, on any given day you could lose. And who knows, because UCLA, we talked about them last week, they could end up being a legit opponent. So when Oregon plays them on the road, that could be a tough matchup. And Chip Kelly would love to beat Oregon and spoil their season. So I'm going to hold off on saying they're a playoff team. Are they a playoff contender? I think absolutely, though, because I do think they have the components of a team that can get there.
I'm curious to see how high they're going to jump in the polls from 12 to do they make the top 5? Or are they at like 6? Like, I really want to see like where they move. So I'll be curious to see. And if they move into the top 5, that goes to show you, okay, they have the nation and media's respect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. I actually think I was thinking 6 or 7 was probably going to be the mark for them. But to your point, though, I mean, we through 2 weeks, and I know it's crazy to kind of say because it's only 2 weeks, but we've seen enough teams look sloppy.
Sorry, having some technical difficulty.
No, all good, Justin.
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm just struggling here. In New Orleans, the internet is not all back, just like how there's trash all over the streets as well. So I'm struggling with that as well. We kind of live in a third world country. Quickly through the SEC roundup, Alabama does not cover. Cruz, you texted us yesterday. I couldn't believe the line. Bama doesn't cover 53.5. Do you think Saban pulled the dogs off a little bit there?
I'm not gonna lie. So I have a few friends that work for the team and work for the media down in Tuscaloosa, and apparently we did not have a good week of practice, and Saban was pissed. So for that reason, hearing that, I thought we would we wouldn't call the dogs off. We looked very sloppy yesterday against Mercer. I think Mercer played us tougher than Miami did. But I think we're looking ahead. We have Bama has a huge matchup in Gainesville on Saturday. College game day is going to be there. It's going to be an electric game. I think maybe we got kind of looking ahead, which Saban hates. So that's why I don't like playing these Division I AA teams or the FCS schools, because it throws off. It throws off our momentum. We had a great win week 1. And then we play this team, and then we look flat. I mean, we went 3 and out on our first drive, and Bryce threw into completions. He was, we just didn't look clean. And then we gave up some garbage time touchdowns like we usually do. I thought we would cover. Unfortunately, we didn't. So that was actually the only game I lost yesterday. Was the Bama cover. I had a great day on my spreads yesterday, but wow. Bama not covering 53.5 screwed me.
Damn, Chris. Texas A&M versus Colorado was a very interesting game yesterday. Obviously, the starting quarterback there for Texas A&M seems like Haynes King is. It looks like he has a pretty serious injury. I don't know yet. Jimbo Fisher in the presser said they didn't have enough information yet. What were your thoughts? Because if he's out, that offense isn't that good. And I know Colorado. I mean, listen, it's a tough place to play, Mile High City, playing in an NFL stadium, but. Man, I thought Texas A&M looked pretty average against the Colorado team yesterday.
Yeah, to your point, if they don't have King, I think they resort to being kind of a defensive first team, and I don't really know if that's going to bode well. Like, it works against Colorado, but then when you get into the heart of your SEC schedule, it's probably not going to work, and that's what concerns me, because week 1 for Texas A&M, my biggest concern, and even King was in the lineup for that game, was that they're sloppy on offense. They still scored 40-plus points, but they were sloppy. A lot of turnovers here. I think he had 3 picks in that game, whatever it might be. And then week 2 was the one where you want to see, okay, can you clean up your mistakes, and can you just beat down on an opponent that, look, no disrespect to Colorado, they should beat them handily. He gets hurt. They don't really look very good. If anything, you're just grateful to squeak by with that 10-7 victory. But now I'm concerned because we talk about it. They got to play in a couple of weeks at Arkansas. We mentioned Arkansas before. The way that A&M looks right now, I think Arkansas would beat them. They got to obviously play Ole Miss. You got to play Auburn. You got to play Bama, which that'll probably be a bloodbath. And remember, Jimbo Fisher, before the season started, kind of said that they were going to beat Saban. He said you got to beat his ass. And I was like, okay, I would never even say that because, Saban put that somewhere on a bulletin board. But this is a concern for me. It was an A&M team that, although they lost Kellen Mond, they were expecting to be explosive on offense because of King. And when you take that element out, and granted, he is a little loosey-goosey with the football, it does, cause for concerns because I really don't know if A&M has a backup plan in here.
Yeah, their next 4 is against New Mexico, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and then Bama. So that is, they'll get through New Mexico. That is a gauntlet with the way Arkansas is playing. Mississippi State's obviously an SEC foe, and then, you have Alabama. But moving on, LSU once again looks horrendous against McNeese State. Looked horrendous. They did not look good again. I don't even want to talk about it. They're just not a good football team. And good thing our guy, Kayshon Boutte, went off again, has 2 touchdowns, 60-plus yards receiving. But that's just given because he's a Boo Crew Media athlete, and that's what we do here at Boo Crew Media. So Florida, Ole Miss, and Auburn roll. South Carolina squeaks by East Carolina, and then Tennessee loses at home 41-34 to Pittsburgh. I know, Cruz, you're happy about that. Joe Milton injured, didn't look that good anyways, but Hendon Hooker takes over, goes 15-21 for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cruz, is this the year that Tennessee comes within maybe 20 points of an Alabama game or
no? No. Tennessee's a dumpster fire. I think them and Vanderbilt are going to compete for worst team in the SEC this year. I'm sorry. Tennessee made a huge mistake getting rid of Butch Jones. They complained and cried and whined. Butch Jones is not the answer. Tennessee hasn't been ranked since Butch Jones. There was a reason Saban went out and got Butch Jones to be an assistant on his team, and that's why he's coaching Division I football again. So Tennessee fans have this expectation of championships because they had one magical year with T. Martin, and they think that they're, I'll give them this. They were great in the 90s. They were great in the 90s, and they had Peyton Manning, and they had that great era, but they are not that team anymore. They are bottom feeders of the SEC. I can't remember the last time Tennessee was even relevant as far as a national championship contender. I think that was back in, 2001, maybe. But look, Tennessee's going to be a work in progress for years until they finally get the guy. I don't think they're going to make a bowl game this year. I really don't.
Is it even a rivalry anymore? Like,
No.
what's that like? 'Cause
The last time Tennessee beat Alabama in football, iPhones weren't invented yet. Like, I want you to think about that. I've smoked a cigar every year since. Well, I mean, obviously not in 2007. I was in high school, but no, every year I was at Bama. We never had the question. We had one crazy game in 2015. That was Tennessee.
was that the block, the field goal block?
That was 09, Terrence Cody. That was Lane
Oh,
Kiffin
no.
1 year at Tennessee. And then 1 year in college, my last year, Tennessee played us really tough at home. Derrick Henry scored with about 2 minutes left, and then we got a strip sack on Dobbs, won the game, ended up winning the Natty that year. But since then, it hasn't been close. It's not a rivalry anymore.
No. It's a joke. No, it's just an absolute joke.
Yeah.
But whatever. Let's move on to NFL. It's week 1, guys. I'm absolutely jacked up. Got the Cruise wake the hell up tweet today. I was just jacked up about that. Chris, I think that's my new favorite thing is Cruise's wake the hell up. I just absolutely love it. It gets me going at 7 a.m. Let's start off, I think, one of the best games of the day, Cleveland at Kansas City. Cleveland comes in kind of as a Super Bowl or bust team, right? Now, Baker has a great year last year. They add Jadeveon Clowney to the defensive side of the ball. They have Myles Garrett. Browns have one of the best rushing attacks in the league with Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And not to mention, and he's actually been quiet for a while now, is Odell Beckham Jr. is back in the lineup here for Cleveland. When he's healthy, he's one of the best receivers in the league. There's no question about that. Can he stay healthy is the question. Chris, I'm going to throw it to you. What are you kind of looking for in this game? Because it looks like Tyrann Mathieu is playing for the Chiefs. He comes off the COVID list. What are your kind of points here, and who do you got in this game?
For me, I think it's kind of simple for Cleveland. And I know it's not crazy, just don't get blown out because they did take steps in the right direction last year. And think about it. Mahomes went down in the playoff game. All of a sudden, you're thinking they're going to win. And I believe Chad Henne made a couple of winning plays down the stretch, which was just bizarre to even think about. But for this team, you have all the components. You have a really tough week 1 draw. It's okay for the Browns to start off 0-1. That's perfectly fine. And obviously, as you can tell, I'm leaning Kansas City here, and there's a lot of reasons why. But the main one for me, and it happened earlier this week when Mahomes was talking to the media, they asked him about his record in September. And at first, I'm like, why the hell they asked him about his record in September? Obviously, there's something to it. So I go back and I look at the numbers. Since Patrick Mahomes has been the starter for the Chiefs, he is 10-0 in the month of September with 32 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Now, he can throw a pick today and they can lose, and then we can come back and I look like another jackass for rattling off these stats, and then they just blow up in my face. But there's something to be said about the Chiefs just being fast starters. Like, Saints fans know the team starts slow for them. The Chiefs just start off immediately. They have maybe a 1 week hiccup, and then they're just back on pace. That team is just something else. So if you're the Browns, just so you can kind of compete with them. If the Chiefs go up a score, do you have a response? That's the things I'm looking for. And I'm looking for Baker Mayfield. And it's not a knock on him, because I'm not one of those people who would just be on, ESPN's Get Up and just start ripping the guy and saying he's trash, because he's not. He needs to play really well, though, in big-time games, because if the Browns are going to put that investment in him and give him an extension that he wants, you got to show up. So can Baker play well? Obviously, you talk about Odell Beckham being in the lineup. I'm one of those guys who thinks Baker actually plays well when OBJ's not in the lineup. So I want to see how he does with 13 there. And I want to see if they can stay, kind of toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. I expect the Chiefs to win. But if you're the Browns, if you lose this game 31-27 or 27-24, I'm not saying it's a moral victory, but at least I feel comfortable about them for the rest of the schedule.
Cruz, what are your thoughts? Cleveland Super Bowl or bust team this year, which is very odd to talk about in Cleveland, but give me your thoughts on what you expect from Cleveland in this matchup today.
I think it's going to be a very physical game. I really want to see if Kansas City address their offensive line needs. I think Cleveland is going to go get after Mahomes today. You have Myles Garrett. You have Clowney coming off the sides. Another underrated player for Cleveland is Mac Wilson, their linebacker. He's made strides every year he's gotten in the league. I like Cleveland's secondary. I think Denzel Ward's a great player. He doesn't get enough talk. But I'm curious to see if the Chiefs can contain the Browns' pass rush. I think this is the year Baker Mayfield shuts up, puts up. I think he's going to have a big contract year. I'm not saying he's going to be MVP or comeback player of the year or anything like that. I just think he's going to put up some really good stats. He's got the weapons. He's got the O-line. He's got the running backs. He has the tight ends. I expect the Browns to win at least 11 games this year. I think Kansas City squeaks by. I'm going to say Kansas City 30 or Browns 24. I think this is going to be a really good game, but I think Mahomes just makes a Mahomes-like play to win it.
Chris, now walk me through this. I don't necessarily know the exact rules with the COVID list, but Tyrann Mathieu is off the COVID list. Now, he hasn't been able to practice now, right?
Yeah.
He has to stay away from the facilities, all that different kind of stuff.
His situation was a little, tricky, but it actually, and this is to the NFL's point because they've been trying to push, obviously, the vaccination rate. If you are vaccinated and you get COVID, you have about, if everything goes well, you can return in 7 days. If you're unvaccinated, you can return maybe in about, I think, like 10 to 14 is the window. So obviously there's a chance of you absolutely missing one game and then maybe missing a second one. So it happened last weekend when they found out that he got it. Didn't practice the whole week. Wednesday, they would ask about him. They said, we'll see. Thursday, they asked about him. They said, we'll see. And then Friday, they find out, okay, we got a good shot of playing him. So it was a really weird situation. I don't think he needs practice, obviously. He's been in that system now for 2 years. He was so good last year. I don't know how it got swept under the rug, but he was arguably the best safety last year with the way he played. So for the Chiefs, obviously a huge boost for Tyrann Mathieu. I want to see what his snap count looks like. I know they said he barely had any symptoms, so hopefully he's in good shape and he's not, looking winded out there. But yeah, it was a very weird situation, but that's something that fans should get accustomed to, especially like a Saints fan with a high vaccination rate for that team. There could be a point where someone gets sick on a Saturday, they miss Sunday's game, and then we sit there wondering, will they make the following Sunday's game? And we're going to sit there looking for practice reports every day. So it's something that fans are going to have to get used to.
Yeah, for sure. I think the whole COVID thing it's insane, but it can really honestly alter a game like within the day. Like it's just absolutely crazy. Let's get Green Bay, New Orleans in Jacksonville. Cruz is going today. So Cruz, I'm starting with you. We all know the storylines for this one. Okay. We got Aaron Rodgers. We got Jameis Winston. The Drew Brees is gone. We have no Michael Thomas. Marshawn Lattimore is now questionable. There's a lot of storylines to this game. Cruz, I'm going to start with you. What is the one thing you are looking forward today? And you can't say Jameis starting quarterback. I want one thing that you're looking forward to today.
The Alvin Kamara for MVP. That's what I'm looking for. I think he's going to have a monster year. I really do. I think he's going to take a lot of pressure off Jameis Winston, and God forbid Taysom Hill comes in. So I think until Michael Thomas gets back, until Traquan Smith gets back, I expect a heavy dose of Alvin Kamara. We know what he did against the Packers last year. He was incredible. I will watch that screen pass to the house every time I see it on Twitter or Instagram. I am curious to see what his touch count's going to be. I expect him to at least probably get around 25 touches. I want to see now with Latavius Murray gone in Baltimore, is he just going to be the guy? Like, is he going to get the bulk of the carries? Are we going to finally have a 100 Alvin Kamara game? That's really what I want to see. Another thing I really want to see is getting some pass rush on Aaron Rodgers. I think this front seven is deadly. I expect actually a really surprising game from Zach Bond today. I think Zach Bond's going to make a really big sack in a key moment. I don't think I've ever been this nervous for a season opener.
Chris, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, Cruz actually hit one of them, which I think is so important. I've been saying it for the last 2 weeks, and I can't wait for him to not show up so Saints fans can just start throwing tomatoes in my face that, I led them on here. But it's do or die time for Marcus Davenport in the defensive line. Like, I'm sick and tired of us talking about how they need to show up. And yeah, they'll show up in, a Falcons game when we knew they were going to beat them anyway, and it didn't matter. But can you show up and get pressure on Aaron Rodgers, who last year had about an hour and a half to throw every single time he dropped back in the Superdome? So I'm looking at Marcus Davenport. I'm looking at Cam Jordan, who a lot of people have said has lost a step. And frankly, I can't argue with them because it looks like he has. Can he bounce back? I'm looking at Peyton Turner. I'm looking at Carl Granderson. Every guy on this defensive line has to step up, especially with an unknown with Marshawn Lattimore. If he doesn't play, obviously you're in an even bigger hole. So you're going to need that pass rush to get pressure on Aaron Rodgers. That's one thing I'm looking for. And the wide receiver group, I have no clue what to expect from them. I know that the Saints like them better than the Saints fan base does because us fans just sit there saying, go get a receiver, go get a receiver, go get a receiver. And Sean Payton every day says, well, we like the guys that we have in our room, and that drives fans nuts. But I believe that they were right about the Marquez Callaway thing. Like, I think he actually is way better than anyone expected. I think the Saints found a diamond in the rough, and you can thank Tennessee for not knowing how to use him, also not having good quarterback play, because now we see what he can do with an actual quarterback. But what about the rest of the room? Like, are we sitting here in a 27-24 ball game, and the Saints got to go down the field? Well, who are your options? You got Lil Jordan Humphrey, you got Chris Hogan, you got Deante Harris, Marquez Callaway, Juwan. Like, your options there's no other team in the league, in my opinion, who has as scarce options as the Saints in terms of just talent. Like, it may work because Sean Payton just schemes guys open, but I'm sorry, you look at a different team. For example, you look like at a Patrick Mahomes going down the field, what he's got to work with. It's absurd. Like, there's just weapons on weapons on weapons. So how do they perform against a Packers secondary, which isn't good, but it's also not too bad? I mean, they do have a top corner in Jair Alexander. They do have Adrian Amos. So I'm curious to see how the receivers play and the pass rush. For the love of God, can you please hit Aaron Rodgers? Because that's going to determine if they're even going to stay close in this game.
Yeah, I have to get a Marcus Davenport sack. I have to get one. It's put up or shut up for him. Big contract year. I'm curious to see what we're going to do with defensive tackle. Is it going to be Shai Tuttle today with Animata out? We just got word that Zadarius Smith is playing, so we knew that was going to happen. So I'm really curious to see. I love our offensive line. Our offensive line we've been able to keep intact. I think this year I really expect some big things. I think this is the year Eric McCoy makes an All-Pro team at center. I think he is the most underrated center in the NFL. The way he moves as a big guy, it's crazy. But yeah, I expect a really big year out of our offensive line. I think we're really going to open up the play action game this year. It showed in the preseason because we actually now have a quarterback who can throw the ball down for 15 yards down the field. So I expect, and you have to account for Alvin Kamara. He is the best running back in the NFL, in my opinion. He's or all-purpose. I know Derrick Henry is the best natural running back, but Alvin Kamara, pound for pound, is the best player in the NFL. I think with his unique skill set, the play-action pass is going to open up big, which is going to be great for guys like Callaway and Deante Harris getting open down the field and scoring those 50-yard, 60-yard touchdowns like we haven't seen in years.
Yeah, and that's something Sean Payton hasn't had in a long time, right? Is a deep threat, like quarterback, right? And so when you mentioned Deante Harris and Callaway, you're going to see some bombs today, which we haven't seen in a while. And Chris, I want to talk about, I guess, the other quarterback, the other tight end, whatever you want to call them. But what is your snap count going to be like for Taysom Hill today? What do you expect to see out of Taysom?
I know Saints fans hate when I mention it, but I battle with them all the time on this. Taysom Hill is a player that the Saints should use, and I don't know what the snap count will look like. I would love to see him get 10 to 15 snaps in a variety of different roles, but they don't have many playmakers on offense. Taysom Hill's a playmaker, whether you like him or not, and usually most people don't like him, so that's why they just sit there ripping him nonstop. This Saints offense is particularly better when Taysom Hill is used, but obviously used in the right way. I don't want Taysom Hill to come in and start throwing passes. I want Taysom Hill to come in and be that short yardage guy. I want Taysom Hill to come in a set where he's a tight end matched up against a linebacker who thinks, oh, this is a piece of cake. And then they realize Taysom Hill can run a 4.40 and he blows by you. So these are kind of ways that I want to see Taysom Hill be used. And I think for the Saints, I think the Saints did a really good job this offseason, especially because it's a quarterback battle. You didn't see anything about Taysom Hill. You didn't see how they might use him. I know we have prior tape, but nothing this year. And another guy who I think that the Saints did a good job hiding, and I think we're going to see today, in addition to Taysom Hill having a really big game, is Deante Harris. And someone brought it up. I think he had about 9 snaps in the preseason where they showed him actually being used. That doesn't tell me that they don't want to use him, because when he makes the 53-man roster and Sean Payton's gushing over him every day, I think the Saints have a couple of deep shots that are called up for today because they're going to need some quick scores against Aaron Rodgers' offense. And I think if all goes well, we're going to see Jameis Winston connect on a couple of them. So there are so many guys for this Saints team that are going to need to step up, because this offense is just like a who's who of just undrafted and late round guys. But Deonte's one of them that I'm looking at, and Taysom Hill needs to have a big role, because if Taysom Hill doesn't have a big role, I think we're looking at the Saints probably being in a couple of tight spots. And I always bring it back to the Buccaneers playoff game. The Saints struggled in the red zone, and I know no one brought it up, but had the Saints had Taysom Hill, who has been an excellent runner, at least in the red zone, I think that makes a big difference. Now, I know it's crazy, and I sound like I'm the biggest Taysom Hill stan in the world right now, which I'm not, but they're going to need to use him. So I would like to see number 7 get at least 15 snaps.
Yeah, I think Harris is my X factor today, not only in the passing game, but in the return game, flipping the field position, getting those punts. I expect him to rip off some good returns today, or at least the Packers are going to kick away from him, setting us up with some really good field position. As long as we can get some pass rush and we get some stops. I think this is the year he comes out, because everyone just knows him as a return specialist. That Devin Hester role. But everyone forgets Devin Hester actually wasn't a pretty bad wide receiver either once he got in the open space. And he can make you look stupid with his route running. Everyone goes back to that deep route he ran against Xavier Rhodes in the Vikings playoff game where he just made him look silly. And had Taysom Hill put a little more on it, he walks in for a touchdown in that pass. So really excited to see Deante Harris. I really think we're going to have a big game from Callaway, and I expect Taysom Hill to catch some passes today too. Nothing would make me happier than to see Jameis Winston throw a touchdown pass to Taysom Hill. Or, we are in Jacksonville, Florida, home of Tim Tebow. I wouldn't mind seeing a Tebow jump pass from Taysom Hill. I think that would be pretty great, just saying.
Yeah, I have an old tweet about Taysom Hill catching a touchdown pass from Jameis Winston from like a couple of weeks ago dialed up, so I'll just bring it out of the woodwork if it happens. I also think the jump pass that you mentioned is amazing because I think that's something that the Saints at some point are going to do this season. I think they're going to run Taysom Hill enough that people are going to creep up around the goal line, and you're just going to have that jump pass. So that's also – and to your point about Deante Harris, because he's been a talking point for a lot of Saints fans as to what they're going to see. I think for him it's very simple. Does he stay healthy? Yeah. If he stays healthy, I think he's going to have a big year. Like, I really think he's that talented, and we kind of saw it in the Bears playoff game, and we even saw it in the Buccaneers game when the ball just gets in his hands. He can just completely just shift things around. So can Deante Harris stay healthy? He is a smaller guy. When you take those hits, it does add up. But I really do think we're going to get at least one big play today where Saints fans go wild over Deante Harris.
Completely agree. So, Cruz, let me get to you here. Is how do the Saints win this football game?
I really think the Saints win this game, and I expect them to win this game because I believe Sean Payton knows that this is probably going to be the most balanced Saints offense we have had since our Super Bowl team. I think this is going to be a new look Saints, and I'm okay with that. We love Drew Brees and we appreciate everything he's done for us, but this is the new era. So I believe Sean Payton is going to play a lot of tempo. We're going to control the clock. We're going to play. This is going to be a very physical Saints offense. I believe we're going to control the time of possession in the line of scrimmage. I believe Alvin Kamara is going to get probably the most carries he's had in his Saints career. I really believe that today. And I think we just run the ball. We play smart. I think the play action game is going to be deadly. I expect a big bomb play action pass in the third quarter to really open it up. And the main thing is, and me and Chris have touched on it, pass rush. You don't have to sack Aaron Rodgers, but you need to make him uncomfortable. When Aaron Rodgers is uncomfortable, he gets trigger happy, he rolls out, he gets frustrated. The Buccaneers playoff game and the NFC Championship game proved that. And I think we have the capability of making him uncomfortable. I love our front seven. And when Onyemata comes back, game over. I'm so excited to see what Quan Alexander has done with his rehab. It's amazing to me that he's ready to go week one. And he's at 100%. I can't wait. I can't wait to see what Zach Bond does. We all know Demario Davis is an all-pro. I think this is the year Marcus Williams becomes an all-pro. I think he is the most underrated safety in the league. What is CD Juice going to do this year playing at their nickel spot? I am excited to see what this young and hungry and fast defense can do. And I think the Saints pulled this out today. I really do. And I'm not just being a homer. I don't have a good feeling about the Packers this year. They've had a lot of noise. They've had a lot of drama. This whole last dance crap that they're doing with him and Devontae Adams. I don't believe the whole Matt LaFleur thing either. So I'm excited to see what the Saints team can do against a Packers team who is Super Bowl or bust for them. For us, everyone's thinking we're going to be a rebuild. I don't think we're a rebuild. I think we're retooling. I don't think we're rebuilding though.
Chris, how did the Saints win this football game today?
Yeah, so, I talked about the defensive line before, but I'm going to shift gears a little bit because, if I talk about the defensive line enough and they don't show up, it's just going to be, heartbreaking at this point. But they're obviously a big component of if they're going to win this game, they need to step up. But Cruz hit on this before, and I think a lot of Saints fans are sleeping on this. Obviously, Cruz isn't, but a lot of fans are, that this offensive line, if Cesar Ruiz or Andres Pete, just one of them, takes the next step, and I think it's going to be Ruiz. I really do think Ruiz has had a hell of a training camp, and I think he is starting to kind of figure things out at the offensive guard position. If he takes his game to the next level, you're talking about the Saints having such a good offensive line that Andres Pete's your worst guy. And, you want to say what you want about Andres Pete, that's fine. If Andres Pete's your worst starting offensive lineman, that's pretty damn good, because I've seen some offensive lines in the league where Andres Pete might be their best guy. That's how bad it gets in other places, the Giants being one of them, So I think for the Saints, if your offensive line, you know what you have at your tackles, you know what you have at your center. If one of your guards steps up and Andres Pete is your weak link, I think this unit will be so impressive that it will carry you for the entire season. When you have the best offensive line, you get to dictate the pace. You get to dictate the tempo. And that all starts today. In the Florida heat, guys are going to be winded. Guys are going to be just absolutely exhausted out there. Can the Saints offensive line just push and set the tone? And if they can, then they have a chance to win, because not only are you feeling comfortable, Jameis isn't taking hits and you're in stride, you're running out the clock, you're controlling it. And Aaron Rodgers can't hurt you when he's sitting on the bench. He just can't hurt you at all. So I think for the Saints, obviously you want to get pressure on number 12. You want to just be able to cause some chaos on the defensive line. But if your offensive line sitting there and they're pushing the Packers back, and trust me, the Packers defensive line, it's okay. I mean, Kenny Clark is a special talent, but the rest of them I think are controllable. And I know a lot of Saints fans were upset that Zadarius Smith is going to play today, which, by the way, doesn't shock any of us, because I've never seen a good player actually miss the Saints game. They all miraculously heal in time. Zadarius Smith on Friday, bad back. He sat out of practice. Who knows? Sunday they shoot him up. He's good. So it's fine. I don't think this Packers front seven is that good. I think that the Saints can push them around. And if they do that, then there's your chance. I do have the Saints losing, though. I want to put that down. I think they're going to lose by a field goal. I think this talk that I've seen on Twitter about the Saints getting blown out is hilarious. Like, you just tell me you haven't been watching the last 2 years without telling me you haven't been watching the last 2 years, because whether it was Bridgewater or Taysom Hill, this team was competitive. So I think that this team is going to stay in it. It's a matter of a play or two, which, by the way, can be caused by the O-line pushing them or the D-line getting pressure on Aaron Rodgers. So I think this is going to be around a 27-24 game. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Saints win. Now, I'm going with the Packers, but I wouldn't be shocked, and I'm not going to let today's result change how I view the Saints. I've told a lot of people they're a 9-8 to 10-17, a 10-17, and everything goes right, maybe 11-6. So if they lose today, that's not going to change it, because this was one of the games that I thought they would lose.
This is probably one of the biggest things for me too, and I love this. Aaron Rodgers has a losing record in the state of Florida in his pro career. He does not play well in this heat. Saints, look, we know it. We do very well in the humidity. I think that's going to be a big factor. They get the luxury of being up in Wisconsin and having that nice little breeze up there. But no, this is going to be a hot day today. And another thing to look out for, this is going to be a home game for the Saints. There's not a lot of Packers fans in Duval right now. It is Saints country right now. It's going to be very loud. You're going to hear a lot of hoot-ats today. It's a sold-out game. It's going to be great. I'm telling you, like, this is going to be a very, very loud Saints game. And I know this is not the Superdome. I know that for a fact, but I feel like our home field advantage is going to go a little bit today. So I expect a really close game. I have the Saints winning 35-30.
Oh, wow. That's I like that. Now, y'all mentioned the offensive line, and y'all think it's going to be a close game. How many carries are we expecting Alvin Kamara to get? And Chris, I'll start with you. How many carries do you think Kamara gets? Because in a Sean Payton offense, he likes to throw it and all that different kind of things. We haven't really seen Kamara get a ton of touches this year. I mean, or throughout his tenure here with the Saints. How many touches do you think he gets as a rusher today?
So I'm gonna use this phrase that I used on a show one time, and I remember the guy was just like so baffled that I said it, that I didn't know. I haven't gotten an invite back on the show, so I wonder if that just kind of just threw him off there. But I said, when it comes to Alvin Kamara, I said don't change the script, because he's like the Charmin's toilet paper. Less is more with this guy. I swear, if you give him 20 touches and it's like 8 in the passing game and 12 in the running game, that's where he's at his best. Like, can he work as a workhorse? Absolutely. I really think he can, because I think this perception that he's just a finesse back is the dumbest thing in the league, because he has strong legs and he'll truck you if he has to. But I think with AK, I think 15 carries and maybe 8 receptions, I'm cool with it. Don't push it over 25 touches, because you need him for the long haul. It's a 17-game season. He's by far your best offensive player. And you know what? If you're the Saints, the reason why I say don't push him, give him over 25 touches, put your money where your mouth is. We saw Tony Jones Jr. look fantastic in the preseason. He did well enough for you to say, okay, Latavius, we don't need you if you're not going to take a pay cut. And that speaks volumes about Tony Jones Jr., who, by the way, someone put a side-by-side measurement. He's Mark Ingram. It's insane. Like, he's just an inch taller, about 5 pounds heavier, with the same broad jump, the same vertical jump, and the same 40 time. It's the same athlete. So if you're Tony Jones Jr., you can succeed in the system. You showed it in the preseason. You ran Latavius out of a job. Devontae Freeman had no shot of anything because of him. So if you're the Saints, why not give 8 to 10 carries to Tony Jones Jr. to, 1, see what you have, and 2, if it works, how good would this Saints team be if they can kind of rekindle that 2018 magic where it was Ingram and Kamara and just running over guys? So if they can do that, I like that option better. It takes pressure off Alvin Kamara. More importantly, if AK's fresh, the Packers linebackers have no shot because the Packers linebacker core is as bad, I would say, as the Saints 2015 group. And Saints fans know how bad that 2015 group was. Like, they are so bad at inside linebacker that I would not overwork Alvin. I would let him stay fresh, and I would let him just absolutely dominate the Packers front seven, because I think that should be the game plan for the Saints.
Yeah, Cruz. So you're looking for Alvin Kamara today. How many touches do you think he needs in order for the Saints to win that 35-30 prediction you had?
Well, first off, that was probably the greatest analogy I've ever heard, Chris. Thank you for that. That was amazing.
Charmin's listening.
It's great. It's Charmin.
While you break.
Yeah, Charmin sponsor us. Just saying. I think this is the year. I think Alvin's going to finally get a career high in touches today. I actually think he's going to break the 20 carry mark today. I really do. I love Tony Jones. I think he is probably the steal of the offseason for us. I love him. Like, he was a very physical runner. That Jags game, it just seemed every time he got a carry, I was like, damn, who is this guy? And look, I'm a big fan of Latavius Murray. He never fit in New Orleans. He never seemed like a Saint. He every time I think of him, I always thought of him as a Viking or a Raider. He never really kind of fit the Saints culture. That's why I was so bummed that we got rid of Mark Ingram and we paid Latavius Murray, because Ingram was a great locker room guy, and I think that's been missed a little bit. But luckily, a guy like Demario Davis solves it. But today I'm expecting 10 or at least 20 carries from Alvin Kamara, and I expect around 8 catches, because I think Chris is right. Their linebacking core is probably one of the weakest in the NFL. There's only, I would say, what would you say, Chris, about like 4 linebackers in the NFL that can actually keep up with Alvin Kamara, and that's Fred Warner, Deion Jones, Devin White, and
I'll give Eric Kendricks some props.
And Eric Kendricks, yeah. And so I think those are the only guys who can really keep up with him from a coverage standpoint. But, yeah, I think Alvin Kamara is going to eat today. I actually expect him to have more receiving yards than I do rushing yards today.
I love it. I'm just jacked up. I think it was Nick. I think it was a Nick Underhill tweet this morning. It's like, this is like the first football game in like 2 years, like an actual football game. It feels like the fans, the fans do make a huge difference, and I'm excited for Cruz to kind of tell us what the atmosphere is like, because I have seen on Twitter that there are going to be a lot of Saints fans. A lot of people have traveled from New Orleans or wherever they evacuated to Jacksonville. So I do agree with you, Cruz. I think there's going to be a lot of Saints fans. I think there's going to be no Packer fans, and it's just going to be nice, I'm sure, for you to see, the tailgating scene. And it sucked today. This morning, I was doing my morning commute to get my coffee, and usually I see a bunch of black and gold ready to go down, St. Charles Avenue to the Superdome. And you still saw it today because people were dodging, debris and tree limbs and things like that, and still wearing their black and gold attire. But I can't wait for this team to get back in the Caesar Superdome, because there's nothing better than game day in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
Saints Packers primetime game. There's nothing better. And so let's move on. Let's go locks of the week. I'll start off here. I love Buffalo -6.5 at home against Pittsburgh. Right. Fans are back in Orchard Park. They're excited. I think Big Ben is done. Cruz, you got a big smile. I think Josh Allen is the second best quarterback in the league. I think he might possibly win an MVP this year. He adds Emmanuel Sanders. He's got Stephon Diggs. Great rushing attack. I love him. Cruz, what's your lock of the week?
Damn, you took mine. No, I agree. I think I couldn't agree more with Big Ben. I think this is going to be Najee Harris's. I think I actually have Najee Harris winning Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to have like a 2016 Zeke kind of season where he's going to be the offense. But yeah, you definitely took my damn. Well, you know what?
You can take that.
You know what? That's totally fine. I am actually I'm going to double down on mine, and I'm going to take the Saints. I'm going to take the Saints today. The just win flat out money line. I'm going that. I think this is going to be a great underrated Saints team. They are my lock. And this is also my lock. They will win the NFC South. Mm-hmm. I watched Tampa, man. I'm telling you, it's very hard to repeat in this league. And I watched Dallas march up and down the field, and I'm sorry, I don't think Dallas is that team. I feel really good. I feel really good about this season. I think Tampa Bay is going to disappoint a lot of people after watching that Week 1 performance.
Love
the
that.
rest
Chris,
will save you so many times.
I love that. That's just energy. I love it. Chris, what you got?
Well, I don't agree with the Buccaneers. I do think they're going to win the division. I do think the Saints, I've been saying it a while, though. I've been saying the Saints are going to be that 7 or 6 seed because, everyone loves to talk about the Saints, like, problems. And I look around the NFC, I'm like, you're not paying attention to what's going on over there? Like, it's just a mess, this conference. So I think they'll be fine in that regard. For my lock, though, and I was looking at this one, and I don't know if the spread changed, but for the whole week, it was sitting at 3.5, the Eagles being underdogs against the Falcons. And I was like, this blows my mind because these two teams both have new coaching staffs. These two teams both don't know how to play defense. And yet, I think about it, if both teams are just an utter mess right now, and I know Cruz loves the guy, this is kind of where Jalen Hurts kind of thrives, and I thought he actually played really well towards the end of last season, and if that momentum even carries over just a little bit, remember that they did beat the Saints at home. They just missed out on beating the Cardinals on the road. They played really, pretty well against the Cowboys for the most part. So, and Jalen Hurts had Philly up against Washington before Philly just decided to just tank that whole game away. So, I'm not saying that Philly's going to outright win this game, which I actually am picking them to outright win, but just the spread alone, 3.5 for a Falcons team that has a new coaching staff. I have no idea what their defense is going to look like. I'm telling you, objectively speaking, I have zero clue. They lost a lot of talent in the secondary. Their defensive line does, outside of Grady Jarrett, they don't have anyone that really makes you just, kind of fear that unit. And the offense, okay, cool. You got Kyle Pitts in there, but it's a new scheme. Your running game is just not that good anymore. You're relying on Mike Davis to be your RB1. No Julio Jones anymore, which is so weird to think of. I know all of us talk about Drew Brees being out of the Saints, but, Julio being away from the Falcons is a pretty big deal as well. I mean, he was the face of their franchise for years. So I think that the Eagles have something here. I don't think that they're going to win a lot of games this year, but it would not surprise me at all if they beat Atlanta. And that would be a double whammy for the Saints fans. If they win and then Atlanta loses to Philly, I think that would just be an all-around great day. But I definitely do think the latter is going to happen. I think Philly will beat Atlanta today.
I would also like Kyle Pitts to score 2 touchdowns in fantasy, please. That'd be great. Thank you.
By the way, I have Mike Davis as my starting running back. It was a bad draft, man. I kind of blame him.
He might do well. He might do well. It's the idea, though, that I feel like Atlanta went into this offseason, and, it's okay to have no, like, I'm not saying it's okay to have no plan, but if you have no plan, usually teams prepare for the future. Like Miami used to just accumulate picks, and you've seen teams, even like the Eagles, the Eagles were like, okay, we don't know who we want to take at 6. Let's move back. They still get Deonte Smith, who's a hell of a prospect, and they have an extra first next year. If Jalen Hurts doesn't work out, they can move around. Atlanta didn't trade back, didn't take a quarterback at 4, which I think they are going to regret for years to come. And then I looked at their free agency group. Okay, I like Mike Davis. That's fine. But, the running game's still not there. I'm sorry. Losing Julio is a big deal because Calvin Ridley's great, and he will still be great because although I heard a lot of people tell me, oh, well, no Julio, he's going to face ones. Hate to break it to you guys, he's been facing ones for the last 2 years now because he's been their best receiver. So that's not going to change. But to have the guy on the other side who takes a little bit of pressure off, that's important. I don't know if Russell Gage can do that or any other wide receiver that the Falcons have. So it's just it's a team that, look, I'm fine with them not doing well, but I just thought their offseason was so underwhelming.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to be I expect them in the top 10 for their draft picks again. I think you're right. They're going to regret not taking Mac Jones or Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields would have been a great steal for them. He's a Georgia kid. He's from Atlanta. I think he would have been a great it would have got fans really excited. I think Chicago's stupid for starting Andy Dalton today. Look, you're not gonna win and make the playoffs with Andy Dalton. You're just not in that division. Atlanta, man, it's on paper every year offensively. They should be scoring 50, 40 a game. And then if they would have kept Julio with Kyle Pitts, look out. They probably would have been the most dangerous offensive team. It would be like Big 12 games, like shootouts. But again, I love Calvin Ridley. I think he's one of the most underappreciated receivers in the NFL. I don't know why he does not get enough love. It's probably because Julio is on the other side. So I expect a big year from Calvin because Calvin has been wide receiver 1 for the Atlanta Falcons since I'd say 2019, you would say. So, I think this is Matt Ryan's last year in Atlanta. I think they kind of blow up the team next year at the end of this year. I think Carolina is going to be the team to watch out for in this NFC.
Yeah. I really like Carolina. I was going to take them. I think they're -3 against the Jets today. We have Sam Darnold playing his former team, but that was my second pick. But anyways, we're going to wrap it up. Rosvaglu Report. Follow him on Twitter, and then follow Cruz at The Real Cruz Ox on Twitter. He'll be at TIAA Stadium today.
Yes.
Chris will be live tweeting the Saints game. It's back, NFL Week 1. Thanks for everybody for joining us. Once again, this was brought to you by Ornitos Tequila. Saints are going to win 27-23. Jameis Winston, game-winning touchdown drive. He'll throw it to Marquez Callaway. That's my call.
Ooh.
Yep, 27-23. And once again, thanks for joining us. Boo Crew Media. Follow us on Twitter or Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube page. I can't even talk. I'm so excited. See y'all later. Thanks for joining.